While the dead of the NBA offseason is in full swing, there's still plenty to go down with this Philadelphia 76ers team. As things currently stand, there's still plenty to go down with that depth chart and a few roster spots to fill up completely. Well, an NBA insider had an idea for what could be happening with this Sixers team and a potential Sixers killer that could join the other side, that being Grant Williams here. The article comes out saying former executive thinks Grant Williams could fit as a stretch four for the Philadelphia 76ers. This was Bobby Marks that was on a podcast discussing things. And to dive into specifically what he said here, he writes, while his Charlotte Hornets are not expected to contend next season, Bobby Marks believes the Philadelphia 76ers should target Williams. In ESPN Plus exclusive, the former NBA executive wrote, how does Grant Williams fit with the long term? Williams has 3 years and $41 million left on his contract, and he has value with the Hornets and teams that are looking for a stretch four, parentheses, hello Philadelphia 76ers. Williams averaged 10.3 points, 4.2 rebounds, 2.3 assists, 0.6 steals, and 0.5 blocks in 28 minutes per game last season. He set career highs in scoring, assists, and steals. The fifth-year forward shot 45.6% from the field, 37.5% from three-point range, and 75.7% at the free throw line. So I'll start with, I have nothing wrong. I don't mind the idea of Grant Williams, but he is a player that I think the idea of him is better than the actuality. And I think what should be noted more than anything here is the risk that you bring on by bringing a personality like him into the locker room. And why this is such on clear display is just look at the experiment that went down with the Dallas Mavericks last year. That he was traded midseason from the Dallas Mavericks to the Charlotte Hornets in exchange for P.J. Washington. Now, obviously, from the basketball perspective, we see how great that worked out for Dallas, that what a clean fit P.J. Washington is. Get Daniel Gafford, the other midseason addition that truly they would not have been able to make that finals run without. But it was also a reason why they were looking to get rid of Grant Williams specifically. And this article is titled, Mavericks moved on from Grant Williams because he was yapping and out of shape. Not something that you want there, and particularly there was a ton of interactions between him and Luka Doncic that really wore on things. And I thought this put it in a really nice way in regards to Grant Williams here. This article writing, Grant Williams' Mavericks' downfall wasn't just about a plummeting shooting percentage. Rather, it was his yapping that led to Mavericks sending Williams to the Hornets for P.J. Washington at the trade deadline. NBA Central, citing ESPN's Tim McMahon, posted on Wednesday that those within the Mavericks organization didn't like Williams running his mouth nor his lack of fitness. Quote, I would say one of the ways that Grant Williams rubbed people the wrong way, the yapping, obviously that's kind of part of it with him, said McMahon, which is charmingly obnoxious if he's productive and it's grating when he's not. But he didn't report in good shape, and Grant Williams not in good shape is not a good defender. So well put there. That's kind of the Grant Williams issue there is when the shots are falling, when he's playing well, you love that type of energy. You love the trash talk, getting in people's face. We've seen him do this in a Boston Celtics uniform. We've seen him play well in the playoffs. That I don't think that should be ignored completely. But the bottom line is when the shots are not falling, there's a huge deficit there, and that's not the type of attitude you want. That he's essentially turning like a worse version of P.J. Tucker, because at least P.J. would be unwilling as a shooter when it's not falling. Grant Williams is still getting those up. Now, as far as the basketball perspective, he's still a good player. That you can see throughout his career, he's been a guy that has produced in a variety of locations with Boston, with Dallas, with Charlotte, coming off a career-high year. You can see how that worked, and for what it's worth, he has been a playoff riser throughout his career at 37.7% three-point shooter on 3.0 three-point attempts per game, 7 points per game, 3.6 rebounds. I do wish that number was a little bit higher there as we have this kind of stretch forward conversation here. I will note that he had a career high 5.1 rebounds per game last year, which is worth noting, some steps in the right direction there. But to pull up his stats completely from last year, it's not something that screams the missing piece to the Sixers team. Once again, 10.3 points, 4.2 rebounds, 2.3 assists, shot 37.5% from three, just 34.6% from the corner, which is concerning there. 55.5% of his shots coming from beyond the three-point arc there. He's a fine player. I don't mind the idea of him, but I do think the risks outweigh the rewards here. That in a perfect world, Grant Williams could be a guy that plays in this rotation, is that final piece as a potential stretch forward that would be perfect alongside Joel Embiid, but I'm just not confident enough in the shot, and I do think that the personality side of things is a real, factored here, that this Sixers organization, more so than ever, we've seen them keen in on and pay attention to the personality types that they're adding. I think that's why they rewarded Tyrese Maxey with such a grand ceremony for him signing his contract. I think that was part of the reason why they brought in Jared McCain and Adem Bona in this year's draft, that both those guys have incredibly high character marks. It does feel like there's a swing in culture that is really being paid attention to, and I do think we'll have some extremely high long-term effects for this Sixers team. But in the meantime, you cannot ruin that for a guy who may or may not even be able to be in the rotation. Now, there's still absolutely a need for a stretch forward here. There's no doubt about it. When looking at the Sixers depth chart as it's currently constructed, we're talking about Tyrese Maxey, Kyle Lowry, and Jared McCain as the point guards, Kelly Oubre and Eric Gordon as the shooting guards, Paul George and Ricky Council as the small forwards, Caleb Martin and KJ Martin as the current power forwards, and then Joel Embiid, Andre Drummond, and Adem Bona at the center position. Now, we know that positions probably mean less than they ever have in the context of basketball, that of course we're going to see some of these guys moving around. We might see a little bit of attempts of Adem Bona sharing the floor with Joel Embiid. We might see, Caleb Martin's likely going to be the primary power forward, even though he has not played a ton of there in his career. But there is absolutely a need for a guy with some size who can stretch the floor. Now, there's a familiar face that I think brings a lot of the positive characteristics of Grant Williams without so much of the risk, and that being Marcus Morris here. When bringing the financial aspects that the Sixers have, and once again to tie into his contract that we're talking about, here we go, a 3-year, $41 million deal left on Grant Williams' deal compared to what likely is going to be Marcus Morris on a minimum. I'm going with Marcus Morris on a minimum for sure. That, sure, you could make the argument that there's more defensively to Grant Williams, and you're right about that for sure, that Marcus Morris does struggle on that end of the floor at times. But as far as a guy that can space the floor, can rebound the basketball, and is unproblematic within the locker room, I'm very confident that Marcus Morris can check all those boxes. He is a guy that is a local Philly dude. It did seem like it meant the world to him playing for the Sixers last year. Let's not forget, this dude took the key to the city during the half a season that he did spend in Philly, not even half a season before he was traded at the deadline. So I would welcome a Marcus Morris reunion on a cheaper deal, far more than having to give up things to bring in a guy like Grant Williams. Once again, I just circled to, he's a player that I think the idea of him is better than actuality, and I think the Sixers have to be very wise in the way they use their assets from here. That they did hit a slam dunk, hit a home run, bringing in Paul George through pure free agency there. They still have a ton of draft picks in here, but you cannot waste those. That just because things swung your way in the past in these recent events to build this roster, it does not mean you can be overzealous in spending them in the wrong way. You have to make sure every decision has everything in mind, and I think this would be far too big of a risk for what it would require to bring him on. And that's not even considering some of the financial implications that you're likely talking about putting yourself above the second apron for the remainder of the season. And you may even have to give up a guy like a Caleb Martin or a Kelly Oubre or an Andre Drummond to try and make the finances work. And that just straight up, none of those names would be worth it in my mind. So while I like Grant Williams, while I do hope he ends up on a team that is more of a contender than the Charlotte Hornets, I do enjoy watching him play in the playoffs and can think of times where he got red hot and really helped that Celtics team. I don't think Philadelphia is the spot for that. So we'll see if there's more to develop from here, but I do think this was mainly speculation on Bobby Marks' end. For what it's worth, he is a guy who's very nuanced in the understanding of the salary cap, so he may believe there's a clearer lane than I've been able to discover for looking at so far. But that $13 million contract is really difficult at this point in time, as the Sixers have put themselves pretty close to those apron values there. So we'll see how things shake out from there. There's absolutely still some roster moves to go down with the Sixers team, as they do have to complete this depth chart, round out this roster, and boost themselves among the true contenders around the rest of the NBA. But it's a pretty hot start to this offseason, and I don't think we should waste that by taking a swing bigger than they should be on a guy like Grant Williams. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Are you on the same side as me? Are you pro Grant Williams? Are you anti Grant Williams? I don't think I can wrap my brain around this actually coming together and occurring, but let me know if you think otherwise. So before you do that, make sure you are smashing that subscribe button if you have not already, dropping a like on this video, and I'll be talking to you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.